It's me, Matt George, and I run Board and Room. How do we do this?
We just start. What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today I have with me two fantastic people, Matt Polipiak and Dave DiFrancesco. You can say hi if you want.
Hello, what's up?
What's up, everybody? I'm on TV.
These are two of my closest friends. I went to school with Dave. I met Matt through Dave. Matt, I have referred to often as my board game soulmate because we have.
It's rude, honestly.
Oh,
It's funny. I call you my board game nemesis. So
yeah. See, it's a nice yin and yang. Yeah, so these are two of my good buddies, and I'm currently up at a cottage with them, which they graciously invited me to hang out with them. And so I decided what better way than to celebrate our communal love of board games. We've been playing a bunch of board games, and we will be playing some more after this. I thought, what better way to do another one of these panel top 5, and this time the topic being the top 5 cottage games, or the top 5 games to play at a cottage, which I think there's kind of a subtle difference between those two things.
Yeah.
So I purposefully left it vague to these two, and they've been hyping me up so much with their lists. They've been going back and forth. I'm very excited to see what they've come up with, and I know that their lists are probably going to be better than mine. But I don't care because I'm happy to bring that gift of two great lists of two very smart people, and then you have me just because, well, I'm the one who edits the videos, so you're stuck with me. Yeah, so how did you guys go about, when I gave you the topic, what did you think of first? Like, was there a certain criteria to break it down? Because I know I have a very specific criteria that I'll outline.
Yeah, like my first question was who's at the cottage? You know, because that's very different. The kind of game you're going to play, whether you're with a bunch of like your friends who are like hardcore gamers, or whether like you're with a bunch of people, some of who you know really well and some of who you don't know as well. How competitive do you want to be? And like how much time do you actually want to be at a table? Like, is the weather nice? Is it raining? These are questions that I have.
Yeah, no, they're all great questions, and I feel like with those could be all different lists, right? Specifically,
totally.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why this sort of list is pretty open-ended in terms of the cottage vibe. Or it doesn't even have to be at a cottage. It just means you're kind of going away to a secluded place. This was my thing, is you're kind of going to a secluded place, and it can be open. So for me, I was thinking of my cottage experiences, some with friends, some with just a partner, or whatever, some just by myself, most just by myself, chopping wood.
Yeah, that's how you spend most of the time.
Yeah, just out being in the wilderness.
By yourself alone.
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to be looking right now? I'm like, am I staring at the camera? Do I stare at you? Or I stare off into space and then I kind of look
not
crazy?
Into space. That would probably not be.
Okay, so I was looking at the trees. I shouldn't, okay.
No, it's great. It's
sorry.
great.
It's just not staring off distantly into the trees.
You
Getting
can
into the
edit
cottage
that out,
mode.
I'm not going to edit it out because I think any gazing at trees is relevant to the discussion.
It's all about. Well, that's the thing. It's like I looked at it thematically. I looked at like what it means to be at a cottage or what it means to be at a cabin and like being away in nature and like games that sort of fit that kind of mode. But then I did also at the same point look at it being like, okay, how long are we at the cottage for?
Yep.
Are we there for a really long period of time? Because there's games you play if you have that time. But then there's also like, okay, what about if it's like there's 10 people around and only a couple people want to play a game? How's that going to factor in?
Nice.
So it my list is very broad.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different.
Yeah, I kind of tried to like, and my list represents like somewhere, no matter what kind of cottager or gamer you are, there will be one game on this list at least that will work for you.
Yeah.
I've tried to like find all the different types of cottagers.
Nice. See, this is why I'm excited.
What's your criteria?
My criteria, I was thinking that when I'm at a cottage, I'm often staying up late and waking up early because you want to take in a lot of that experience. So for me, I was really thinking of those times where a lot of my games are minimal setup and like minimal components and also stuff that you can enjoy when you're tired. And also most of these are games that I specifically only enjoy playing when I'm at a cottage.
Interesting.
I don't think they're bad games, but I think like if I'm at a cottage, that's what I'm potentially craving, except for the first one.
Yeah,
because
we're gonna have no overlap on our
yeah.
list. Like our lists are gonna be
so different,
night and
which
day.
is great.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of my primary board gaming at cottages.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think of like the time that I spend with my family up like in northern Saskatchewan. It's like that is primary gaming time. So it's like some of the main gaming happens there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Some of the biggest gaming
because you have
Yeah.
the most free time. So that game that normally takes too long that you're not going to pull out on a weeknight and might be too long on a weekend when you're up at the cottage for a length of time, you're more willing to like invest that time because you have that free time up
totally,
there.
absolutely.
For sure. Honestly, that's why I purposefully didn't tell you my own criteria, because I wanted that element in it, and then I also wanted to like supplement it. So mine are going to be.
I think some of mine
lighter.
fit both of those criteria. To be honest with you, like some of mine are bigger games that have so many more components and like long rules, and other ones are like small and can take no time.
Our lists are going to be the same.
Our lists are going to be the same.
We've been dating for too long.
Yeah, they're probably going to be the exact same list. Let's be honest here.
So okay, without we've hyped it up enough. We have our criteria. So who wants to go first? I know you wanted to go last.
for the.
I'll go first. Then I'm on this side.
Okay.
So my number 5 is probably going to be like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean? But I really wanted to include a Uwe Rosenburg game on the list. And I was trying to think thematically of like which one that I've played like would fit, because I think like Uwe Rosenburg games take a long time to play. They take a lot of setup, the rule books oftentimes. So that's for when you're in the mode of like, we're at this cottage for a long time. Let's like master this game basically and play this game. So thematically wise with the Uwe Rosenburg game, I thought the only one that would really fit was Glass Road. Because you're like working and you're like chopping down lumber and getting bricks and clay and all this stuff, and it's like very much set in like the 1600s and like making glass and stuff like that. And it's obviously resource management, as all Uwe Rosenburg games is. Or sorry, all Uwe Rosenburg games are. Is better English.
All Uwe Rosenburg games.
But yeah, so that I put that as my number 5 because more for like it's an interesting place. I didn't really know how to put it there. But it's there because I wanted it, because I love Uwe Rosenburg games. I love his like work on resource management, and like I think like he's really made that whole category his own. Yeah. And it's one of the hardest ones because it uses the wheel, like the resource wheel and stuff like that.
Yeah, it borrows that from like Oren Labora. It's like a
more
streamlined version of that, because Oren Labora was the first time he had used that.
He used that in Oren Labora, but I'm pretty sure he like made it more complex for Glass Road. No.
Yeah, I just think it's like a better version of the resource.
Totally.
Have you played Glass Road before?
I haven't. I know I've seen it on a shelf, and every time I'm over,
it's good. I'm surprised that it's on there.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was on there too, but it is
just
something
captures the spirit.
Yeah, like for me, I'm like, oh, that's a game that I would want to play up here. Like
for length,
the board looks wise.
For length of game, it is like one of the shortest Uwe Rosenburg games out there, and probably the only Uwe Rosenburg game I've played that I've been like, this should be longer. Yeah. Because it actually like it finishes and you're like, you feel like you were just getting your engine wrapped up. And I've like read online, like some people like argue that it should be longer. Like some people do think it is too short. Yeah. But it's probably a good length for Cottage.
But I don't know. I think it's a really great game. It doesn't hit our table that much. And the pieces are nice, the board's nice. Like and thematically it's like, tearing down forests to like set up new stuff and like being up in like secluded woods and like having nothing but trees around. It's sort of like that's just I don't know, brought me to that place. So
cool.
Yeah, that's my number 5.
That's a great number 5.
What's your number 5?
All right, my number 5. My number 5 is the heaviest on my list because I wanted to encapsulate like one of the joys of being up here at the cottage is being able to just sit down and play like a bunch of games. But I also wanted to hit that sort of nature element as well. And so I picked, but also still staying with the minimal setup time and minimal table space too, because you don't know how big that the cottages are going to be.
True. That's true.
You can't always like pull out a giant one. So I went with Castles of Burgundy as my number 5.
Yep.
Oh, I love that game. Yep. That is a great game.
It's a great game. It's something that I don't play that much, and it's something that I almost brought up here. I didn't bring it up here with me because we had other games that we wanted to.
I would have been stoked to play Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah,
I love that game.
It's a really great
game.
But
just in terms, if you don't know, you're basically everybody has their own little map, and you're creating this kingdom basically. So there'll be field tiles with animals in them, and you score points. You score points for everything. It's Steffenfeld. You'll score points for everything, but it's a great insular little experience. You're creating your own little kingdom. The pieces are very small. I think the setup's pretty easy. And for me, it would scratch that. It's emblematic of that. You want to sit down or during an afternoon, the sun is shining, but you just want to get into something nice and meaty and chunky, and that's Castles of Burgundy for me.
Yeah, so, totally. Yeah. And I feel like it also is like one of Stefan Feld's easier games too, like to teach at least.
Yeah.
So if there was somebody at the cottage who didn't maybe never played it before, you could teach it and they could play it as well. Like,
yeah, I'd say it's medium weight. Like it's not like light.
Yeah.
Like if you've never played a board game before and I started explaining that game, your head would probably
100%.
explode and panic.
Yeah.
Like Renee would just, if I was explaining that game for the first time, she would pay no attention and then maybe still win.
Well, she never pays any attention anyway.
That's true.
So.
But yeah, it's a medium weight game. It's good. Yeah.
So
that's my number 5. Castles of Burgundy.
It's a great game.
So for my number 5...
I know you have 5 options.
So. I have so many options. Okay, so for my number 5, I've narrowed it down to 2.
Okay.
And what I wanted to encapsulate the party game, which I think is like a really important style of game that you want to play at a cottage where you have people who don't necessarily play board games or like think that they love board games, but they've played like Monopoly and Clue and Scrabble. So you want to get something on the table that you can explain really quick. My 2 options, one is like the chaotic version and one is like the very peaceful version. And I've decided to go with the peaceful version.
Okay, interesting.
Because I think cottages are supposed to be peaceful. And so I've gone with, for my number 5, The Mind. Which is a very simple, fun, basic card game. You can play up to 4 people and you play it in silence. There's 100 cards in the deck, labeled 1 to 100, and every round you start with getting dealt 1 card, and then the next round 2 cards, 3 cards, so on and so forth. And every round in silence, without any gestures or anything else, just eye contact. You have to, with your players, other players you're playing on a team, you have to lay down the cards in order from 1 to 100 based on what you have in your hand. Getting it numerically, not chronologically.
Chronologically?
Yeah, both words. In order. And it's a fun game, and it's fun to play with good friends, and as you start, you start to develop your own sort of unspoken pattern of how you play this game. You develop this like synchronicity together, which is really fun, and it's a fun experience.
We've never been able to beat it.
We never beat it. No. I think you have to get through like 8 rounds when you're playing with 4 people.
Yeah, 8 rounds for 4, 10 for 3, 12 for 2.
Yeah, and we've gotten close, but we've never fully encapsulated that. And it's fun to have like a co-op game where you're working together as a team rather than this like cutthroat element that my chaotic choice would have had. So for my number 5, I went with The Mind.
Yeah, it's a great choice. Yeah, it's a great choice for a cottage.
The Mind's good. It's especially like, it would fall under my criteria. It's not on my list, but it's especially like Zen and everybody who I've introduced it to. It's one that hits with so many non-gamers.
Totally, because I also think that so many people have played a game like that in their life. You know what I mean? Like a lot of schools, when they're trying to get kids to quiet down, they might play a game similar to it. So that idea of like having to, count add together as a group it's so simple to put out, and then also you don't need much space. Like you can literally do it around a coffee table.
Yeah,
you don't need to be around
all lounged out on the couch.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you want to be silent after a long night
100%.
of cottaging.
Number 4s?
Number 4.
Now you start with number 4.
No, we'll just keep going. We
have to keep going. No, because you wanted to be last for number 1.
Well, you can be last.
So if it was 4,
I'll be last for number 1. But we'll keep it. We'll keep it the same.
Fine. It's rude. Okay. So my number 4 is a game that was introduced to me by my parents actually, and it's a card game. It's been around for a long time, but I feel like it's making a little bit of a comeback, or at least it is in my family. I don't know. Everyone's buying this game in my family. Everyone wants to play it right now, which is like great for my family because most of the time it's only just been card games. And this is a card game, but it's its own game. It's 5 Crowns, which we actually have 2 copies of, literally above us, because it's a super simple like card game where you pick up a card and you have to like make the right thing in your hand all work together. But the way that you play it is that every single round, the amount of cards you deal, that number is always wild, so it just adds in. And there's also 5 suits. So there's 5 suits instead of 4, and there's also 3 copies of every single one of those cards in the deck. So there's so many different possibilities, whether you're trying to make your cards all match or you're trying to make a run. Your basic gin rummy sort of style of game. But I just love a game like this for the cottage because it can take however long it takes, but you don't you can focus, and it has some strategy, but you can also just talk, and you can also just drink and hang out and like really enjoy your time around the table because you're just playing a pretty basic, simple game. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. It's hit the table like the most of any game this cottage season for me because it's like it's so simple to teach to anyone, and my family loves it. My my 9-year-old niece plays it. So it really spans an age
is probably
range.
the most played game in this cottage.
In
for
this
sure.
cottage,
Yeah,
100%,
yeah,
it's the most played game. Yeah,
I feel like card games are like an intrinsic part of the cottage experience.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I mean, like I grew up playing cards. My family's card. So to get like a game that is a card game but has its own sort of set of cards, it's fun. Like it sort of is a nice marriage of a couple cottage classics.
Totally, yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, super accessible, and I think what you brought up in terms of being able to socialize, that is like
huge part.
Totally.
That's such a nice thing. Like Castles and Burgundy, I'm not talking to you at all.
Yes,
I'm
totally.
freaking here all the time.
Concentration.
Glass
Totally.
Road,
Glass
boom,
Road,
I'm here,
we're
right?
in, yeah,
So you
for
want
sure.
to have that, to be able to have those games that really don't take much thought at all,
Totally.
but just provide that atmosphere of collective doing something together.
Yep.
And
you can play with up to 7 people.
Which is nice too.
which
Yeah,
is-
you have that
yeah.
variable.
Yeah.
Actually, my number 4 touches on that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you want to?
Okay, yeah, I'll go.
next then?
So I also wanted to have an homage to the card game, but something that's a little bit more elevated than a basic card game. Yours is a little bit basic.
It is a little basic.
It's a bit basic. I'm just going to give like a little bit more of a refined
That's fine.
choice.
It was a bit basic. That's fine. That's fair.
And it's fine. It's a great game. I love it. I play it all the time.
Yeah, the entire DiFrancesco family has shut this video off. You're no longer invited to Christmas.
Unfollowed. Goodbye. Unsubscribed.
So I'm cheating for number 4, and I'm giving 2, but I think they're basically the same game, although maybe people will disagree with me. So one is like, if none of you are gamers, you'll play this version of it, and if you are gamers, then play this version of it. And so the games are Sushi Go Party and 7 Wonders, which are the same game, really, just with like slightly different themes, and 7 Wonders is more complex than Sushi Go Party. But the thing that's brilliant about both these games is that it's always your turn. So you can play with up to 7 people as well, so it ranges in numbers, and you're never waiting. Sometimes when you play board game with Chris George, you're waiting an eternity to take a turn. Sometimes whole seasons can pass while he's thinking about how he will beat you at a game. And what's nice about 7 Wonders is it's always your turn, so you're not waiting on the Chris George to make a decision. You get to make your own decisions. Yeah. And so these games move really, really quickly. They're light, they're fun. 7 Wonders has a little bit more complexity, a little bit more thought. Sushi Go Party, you can put down on the table, teach anyone. The graphics are fun. Also would play well with younger ones. So that's why my choice is those 2.
Now, question, you would opt for Sushi Go Party over Sushi Go, even though you, for non-gamers specifically, even though you have to like alternate which sets you throw in.
I just think that it offers replayability value that the original Sushi Go doesn't offer, and if you don't want to think too hard on it, they have sets for you predetermined.
Oh, okay.
In the rulebook, it'll be like, if you want this type of gameplay with these cards, if you want this type of gameplay with these cards. So for people who don't want to think about it at all and just put it on the table,
just set it up that
you
way.
can do that. But Sushi Go itself is just the one game, and I think the replayability value is just so exponentially increased when you can play with different sets of cards.
And also, it's like not that much more expensive.
No,
and you get the whole base game.
In it.
Like I don't own Sushi Go Party because I have Sushi Go, but I want to get rid of Sushi Go so I can buy Sushi Go Party. But no one wants Sushi Go because everyone wants Sushi Go Party.
That's fair. Yeah, I've played Sushi Go Party once, and my favorite thing, the soups were in play.
Yep.
And if someone else plays a soup, you don't get to score those points.
Yeah.
So every single round, I just played a soup. And I announced at the table, I was like, I'm playing a soup. You know I'm playing a soup.
Miso.
And I flip it over like miso. I got 0 points. I came in dead last, but it was it was a blast.
And it's just like the scores can range so much, and it's like such a great you have to choose things in the moment. You can't overthink things, and you have to be really adaptable while you play that game. And there is strategy, but with cards, and this is what I love about cards, there's always going to be an element of luck. So those hyper-competitive things are easier to set aside because you're like, the cards. I just got bad cards. It's easier to just let that shit go or let that stuff go.
Yeah. Which is important if you have some hyper-competitive people in your group.
Who would like Chris George.
Wait. Not saying any names.
Who?
But so
not me. What's your number 4, Christopher?
My number 4 is a game I may have played for the first time at this cottage, actually. Yeah, I don't know if I played it with either of you. I think, because I think you guys owned it before I did. And it's a simple game, super cheap, great price point. It's only $20 or was $20 back then for like really nice components and like a pretty solid game. And that is King Domino.
Oh yeah. A classic.
Yeah.
It is a classic. Honestly, it's one of those games where I found out it was $20. I was like, well, I might as well go pick up a copy.
Totally.
Because like it's a really solid system.
Yeah.
It appeals to those people who like dominoes, but you're building this 5x5 or 7x7 grid, and you have different terrain on each domino, and so you're going to be taking a domino, putting it into your section. You can't move it after you've done it, and you're trying to create large swaths of terrain with little crowns in them to get additional points. That's all it is. It's super simple, but this is one in particular that I only enjoy playing at a cottage.
That's fair.
Because it is so simple, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to bring King Domino to a game night. I'm just not.
Yeah,
like, if we've set
true.
aside time to get together and play some games.
Although sometimes it's nice to have like a warm-up game.
It is. It's a nice
warm-up
It's a nice
game.
filler. But I think, like, for me, the cottage atmosphere is the perfect place, because I remember waking up, and our friend Dana was also up here, and she was awake too, and so we just played a couple rounds of King Domino while everybody else was asleep. And it was like simple, chill, lots of fun. Yeah,
Doesn't take long either, which I like. You know,
Yeah.
it's like if the sun's shining, it's a beautiful day. You want to get a game in, but you also don't want to spend the entire days indoors because it's so nice outside.
Yeah.
Like,
It also
play a quick round of King
is a
Domino.
game that you could play on a outdoor table too.
That's true. Like the pieces
Great
are sturdy
components.
enough that the wind's not going to blow it
Yeah,
away.
exactly. And there also is now Queen Domino
Yeah.
as well, which is a bigger version of it, I think. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, there's more tiles, there's more like terrain. It's just
because in King Domino you can only do a 7x7 grid if
Yeah.
you're playing with 2 players. And
Yeah.
in Queen Domino you're able to play 7x7 with 4 players as well. So it just gives you more to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's a good choice.
That-
Very
yeah.
good choice for a cottage.
well, it's specific. It is.
Yeah.
Like, I almost didn't take it off the list. I like King Domino a lot. I think it's a good game, but I never tend to play it at home.
For sure.
Yeah,
But,
I've
like,
probably played it the most at a cottage.
want to play it
realistically.
here
Yeah,
at a cottage.
it is.
so,
That is very good.
yeah, that's
It's
why I
a good
made my
choice.
list.
Well, the other time that I've played it is like if I really want David to play a game with me on a weeknight and he's feeling too lazy to do it. And I'm like, can we at least just play King Domino? Like, just please.
That's fair. Yeah.
Play any game with me, babe. One game.
Yeah, just one. Usually, that's fair. That's very fair.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
needy.
Are we going to threes
Let's go to
already?
3.
Why am I always starting it?
You're
You
starting
did
it.
it. I started.
Okay,
before.
so my number 3 is a game that I actually, sadly, haven't played as much as I would like to play.
This is actually just a top 5 list of games that David doesn't play.
It might be. Whatever. No, but I just feel thematically this game makes so much sense for cottage. It's Wingspan. Because you're in the forest, there's trees everywhere, birds everywhere flying around, like that whole theme of the birds and spotting them out, and like, which is also kind of cool because like you might be playing the game and a bird might flip over and it might say like the region that you're in, and that's where this bird is, and you can like then go outside and see the bird.
And you might look up from your game and look to your window and see that bird fly
Totally,
down
yeah.
onto the window ledge and sing a little tune.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll
very
capture it.
Snow White, very Snow White up in this
It's a
bitch.
cottage moment.
Totally. And like, if you like even looking outside today, like I've seen so many blue jays, flying around. So it's just thematically it makes so much sense. I don't know. I also have like birds kind of scare me a little bit. So if I can look at birds through a board game more than actually like being close to birds, I feel better about that.
Now, would you say Wingspan helped you conquer your fear?
No. There's
some horrifying bird facts on those cards.
There's
like also those. So the components are beautiful.
Yes,
of that
absolutely.
game, and it's Stonemaier, right?
Yeah,
Their games are always beautifully designed. I think the components are always super high quality, but those eggs look like those chocolate covered Cadbury eggs.
100%.
The mini eggs.
And
Delicious.
I want to eat them.
Yeah.
And so I would caution if you're playing with or if there's any little ones around, they will be consumed or taken away. So guard your eggs.
It's very true. Yeah, I just think it's also a brilliant game.
It's a great game.
Like the way you play it, it's everything about it is just so good. The
It's
components,
peaceful.
It is peaceful.
Yeah, you don't like games with a lot of like interaction. No.
Yeah.
So I feel like that game really scratches that itch because you're not really going to get fucked over.
Totally.
Oh, can I say that on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not really going to get fucked over by someone else.
Totally.
Directly.
Yeah. I prefer games where I'm working on my own board.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some interaction with other players when it comes to like worker placements. You know, like we have to like fight over who gets to go on what place, but it's still what I choose affects my own game.
Yeah.
And somebody else across the table can't hurt what I've done because I just feel really. I hate that shit. Like, get away from me. Like, I've worked. I have done my work. I have gotten my resources to get myself to this place.
You've worked
That's
hard.
why, like, I love Scythe, for instance, but, like, no, I
worked
so hard. Yeah, I worked so hard on my own thing that I, like, you go, fuck off.
Yeah.
Don't come near me.
So that's why games like Wingspan, like, fit for me, is because it's like, no, this is my game. I need to do what I need to do. Sure, there's some effect by the other players, but for the most part, it's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are my birds, all right? Those are my birds.
I'm glad. I mean, I'm really glad you put Wingspan on this list. I think it wouldn't be a good cottage list if Wingspan wasn't on here somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not on mine, so I was hoping it would appear on one of yours because it really is. Yeah. Let's go number 3.
Number 3. So for me, my number 3 answers or like harkens to 2 classic cottage things, which is puzzles. You love doing puzzles at a cottage. I feel like that's like a huge part of a cottage experience. And also sometimes like trying to round up a bunch of people to play a board game is difficult. So mine's a 2-player game as well. So you just need to find one person who will play with you. Just one. And hopefully you can do that.
It's just one? The game just one?
No, it's not. No. So the game that I've chosen for my number 3 is Patchwork, which is...
Also my number 3.
Really?
Yeah, this is my number 3.
Bing, 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 bing. Yeah, I just think that it's so great. It's got the puzzle element.
Exactly. Number 3 was going to be number 3
It's amazing.
I didn't
the pieces fit well together. You're building a blanket, like a quilt. What's more cottagey than that? It plays really quick. Anyone can learn it. Like I've taught it to my parents, and they've both played it and enjoyed it. It's got a nice feel to it, and the pieces, the puzzle pieces of like making your quilt is so satisfying.
Sometimes I wish they would fit together better.
Sometimes
they don't fit together better. But it does like you know, and Rosenburg is a genius. That's all I say.
Yeah. This may even be shorter than Glass Road. Rosenberg's shortest.
It is definitely shorter. It's just a little 2-player game.
Yeah.
But it's such a brilliant game. I love that game so much, mostly because it's a game that I know like 98% of the time I will beat Matt at, no matter what. So it's like when I need that small victory, I'm like, no, we're playing Glass Road.
You mean Patchwork?
That's right. That's what I meant.
Yeah. You don't usually win at Glass Road.
No, I probably would not win at that. But yeah, Patchwork. When I need a win in my life, you know, when I really just feel that, I'll just I'll play Patchwork.
I just love that like the currency is buttons, and I'm just like collecting me buttons and
Yeah, I love that. I love what I really get from Patchwork is its heavy pirate theme as well. You know, collecting me buttons.
How dare you?
I also Patchwork was my number 3 as well. As soon as you said puzzle and 2-player, I was like, okay, great, that's perfect. Because also this is my favorite game to set up because you just dump it out on the table and then make a circle and it's set up. And I think
that's true.
It also fits in my criteria. Well, Castle Burgundy doesn't really, but of like decent pieces, like not too much setup. It takes you need to be able to create that circle, but it's not too much table space, and it really is just solid, and it embodies the feeling of a cottage when you just want to like make a nice polyomino shape. And
really, every time I arrive to a cottage, I'm like, I just really need to make that shape. The word you said, I forgot it. I didn't want to pretend to say it.
This is a common thing.
Because we're talking about
polyomino games. So that's my number 3, Patchwork. Number 2.
Oh my god. Okay.
You know I'm leaving all those things in.
Of course he is.
No, don't
okay.
I'm leaving. I'll make a supercut of all your embarrassing moments at the very end.
There's just going to be the amount of times that I've like stared off into space after you told me not to, and I like see myself and I'm like,
me too.
Oh god, look at the thing.
I just like looked at this microphone sometimes just been like,
Yeah, I forgot to mention we have Sobek and Horace guest starring as our audio engineers today because I only have 2 laugh mics, so that's why they're there.
They're both here. They're here with us. Okay,
on to number 2.
Here we go. So, my number 2 game, and I imagine this is where the crossover is going to start to happen with your list, Matt.
Probably gonna be the same.
Because my number 2 is a game that it's been hard for me. It's been a really
yeah, we have the same.
It's been a really difficult game for me to like really love, but now I fully love it, and it's Root. I think Root is
number 2.
Yeah, of course. Nice. Root is just like it's such a good cottage game. It takes place in the forest. You play as all the woodland creatures,
and it's an asymmetrical game. So there's different factions. There's a bunch of expansions, and the game is meant to be not unbalanced, but it plays differently depending on who you're playing as. This is not a game for non-gamers at all.
Not. Yeah,
this is a game that like the more you play, the more you'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
And that you want to play, like if you were to play for the first time with someone who knew the game really well, it would most likely be a somewhat miserable experience. But that can be mitigated depending on what faction you play. Certain factions are easier to play than others, which I think is...
We've taught this game to many times, and if they've played as the Vagabond, they won. Most of the time it's the first game.
It's so satisfying. I don't know any other game that's quite like it. The pieces are great, and you do have that woodland, you're in a forest type of vibe, and there's just, I never don't want to play it at a cottage. Like that's a game that hits the table the most for us at a cottage.
Totally. It's just so exciting too, because it's like, you have the variance, and like you're like, oh, I played this game as the lizards last night, and like I came so close. Okay, let me see if I can get this lizard win. You know, like we played with Matt's brothers for years before the lizard cult ever won. But it was like that mission of ours, of mine and his one brother, to like continually play the lizard cult to get that win for the lizards.
We finally got a lizard cult win.
We finally did it, you know?
Like the second ever marquee win, which is like a faction that I feel like is surprisingly difficult. And there's a new expansion coming out, which I kickstarted. I'm really excited about. They're saying it's probably going to be the last one. And what's great about it too is you can play with a lot of people. I think you can play with up to 6.
Yeah.
But if you're playing at a smaller player count, they've now introduced like mechanical, like automated factions that are a really fun thing to throw in. That also help change up the game.
Which even sometimes, like when we were playing a 4-player count, we would still throw a bot in just to make the board that much harder, and just to make that much more competition, or just to have something else to like get in the way of the conflict going on. And it's just such a.
But it is also the kind of game like, you know, people will get pressed. Like you will be upset. Like I've had people.
I tried to quit like 3/4 of the way through
multiple games.
Yeah. Well, when the Eerie Dynasty goes into what's it called? What's it called?
Oh yeah.
No, I want to say remission. It's not remission. What is it?
Turmoil.
Yeah. When the Eerie Dynasty,
I was too busy thinking about the word turmoil that I didn't clock remission.
Remission. When you go into remission.
Well, think about it. When the Eerie Dynasty goes into turmoil for the second time within like 8 rounds,
that's called playing poorly,
it's
David.
True, but you're going to have a fucking tantrum, and you're going to get up. And if anybody should know about tantrums, it's you, sir.
I mean, I don't know.
So
what I will say is, it's easy to get upset in that game because in order to win, you will have to go in other people's places. You have to attack them. You have to surprise them. You have to do things that screw people over.
Yeah.
And for people who don't want that in a game, I would never recommend this game. However, it brings me great joy. But I would definitely say play a nice co-op game afterwards and remember why you love the people.
And that's the reason for me. It's like that's why it took me so long to love the game and to see how crazy amazing this game is because so much of my gaming experience has been like on my own boards. And to have to like literally go the exact opposite of that and try to do it and just like mess up people and like really like build your army and go in and take what you need. You know, it's so different than the way I usually play games, but that's the one that's like, I can do this. I think it's probably the theme. Like, I don't know, the meeples are so cute. The artwork's amazing. Like, they keep adding so many new little things. Like, with the newest Kickstarter, with the expansion, there's also like all these like hirelings that are going to be added into the game.
An alternative setup, which is something really fun too.
Cool.
Yeah,
Totally.
I'm pretty sure that aren't they
2 new factions.
Aren't they also releasing a possible like co-op mode against? Like you can fight.
There might be.
There's
been
something
a couple
about
different versions. Like, I know with the Riverfolk expansion, they released a co-op mode, which I've never played and have no interest in that game being co-op.
No.
Yeah, but the nice thing is too, it's like not every faction is about having an army, right? Like you said, you have to build your army up. Well, like there's factions that have like 1 piece or only 6 pieces. So every faction really plays so differently. Yeah. The nuance is like knowing how to best use your faction while also understanding how the mechanics of the other factions are working. Because certain factions seem like they're really far behind, but if you let them get an inch, they like ramp up and gain a ton of points at the end of the game. So you have to like keep them down because if you blink and let them slide once, they'll end up winning the game. So also you want to play with people who know the game, otherwise it can be a really unfun experience.
Or are the same sort of skill level, right?
Absolutely.
Like you can learn. I think if you like asymmetrical player powers at all and you haven't played Root, you have to. Yeah. Even just and you don't need all the other expansions as well.
No, start with the 4.
The base game is great. You get plays up to 4 people, and then you can add in new expansions. If there's one expansion that you like the most, what would it be?
I would,
because I've only played the base game.
For me, I would probably say the Riverfolk expansion, just because I love the Lizard Cult. The Lizard Cult plays off of like the discarded cards, and like they're interesting. Like most of their stuff needs to be done by like spending acolytes, but also I really love the Riverfolk company.
That's the Otters, right?
The Otters, yeah. As much as I do love the one after, like as much as I love the moles.
No, the Clockwork is the automated one. It's the Underground, I think.
Underground,
Underworld.
The Underworld. Yeah. Underworld. Like the Corvid and the Duchy, like they're great factions, but they don't have my heart in the way that the Riverfolk and the Lizard Cult.
Yeah, like I prefer playing the Riverfolk and the Lizards, I think. Particularly the Riverfolk is arguably my favorite faction. I think that if you were to start with the base game, I would say to get the Underworld expansion next. Because
the Riverfolk's too good, you won't want to get anything else?
No, because the Duchy is like the first faction that has the same sort of reach that the Marquis has, and you're going to get tired of someone having to be the Marquis all the time, because you pretty much always need the Marquis in the game, and the Duchy is a great alternative to that, which I think is a really great faction that shakes things up.
Which I also believe the new Warlord will
also cover that.
In the upcoming
expansion. But I would say to start with the Underworld expansion, because I just think that the Corvid conspiracy and the, not to be confused with COVID conspiracy, which is not a thing, the Corvid conspiracy is a fun faction that adds a little fun chaos to the game, and the Underground Duchy is a really, really great faction. And
cool.
Yeah. It's a great game.
A great pick.
But the base 4 are like so good too. Like the original 4, like that's a tight game. And also, if you're unsure about like, do I want to buy this as a board game? It is available now online as a game
on Steam.
Yeah,
you can play it on
Steam.
Steam.
Nice.
Yeah, and they did a really great digital implementation of it. You can play with other players online. The tutorials are really great for teaching you the game.
Oh, that's really good.
So I would highly recommend, if you're like curious but not sure before you invest that money, like find it on a sale or just buy it off of Steam. It's
nice.
And I'm pretty sure you can also get the Riverfolk expansion.
Just released the Riverfolk expansion
on Steam as well. Yeah,
but not the. I think they plan to do the Underground, but
the Clockwork as well. I think
Clockwork
is
also available.
That's great. I didn't know that they had a Steam version. It's good that it is like the tutorials feel like. That feels like a really nice. If you're bad with rulebooks, I know there are lots of videos out there too that'll teach you and whatever. But to have an automated like physical teacher, I feel
that's an exhausting game to teach. Like, I get stressed out having to think about teaching that game. I just usually want to play with people who know it. And literally this summer, we wanted to play with someone who didn't know it, and we handed them a laptop, opened up the video game, and was like, "Play these tutorials, and then go play it with us."
Totally, and he learned the 4 factions. And then we only played as those 4, and then he played as the Vagabond. But he learned it, learned it through the tutorials. But I've also done that with other games, like Agricola. The iPad tutorial of Agricola taught me way more about that game than anything else would have, because it's like, and more of the digital implication of these board games in those tutorials were super helpful to get those bigger, harder games to the table with more people.
Yeah,
that's really cool. It's something I hadn't really considered. Well, because it's tough too, because like you're essentially buying, like you shouldn't just spend money to just get the tutorial, right? Like you should have some interest in playing the game fully, so it's not like you should have to pay for a tutorial. But if you're more of a hands-on learner, that's like
a
cool, definitely.
Yep.
Okay, well, we talked enough about Root. So
I feel like my number 2 is Root now. After this, it just feels so good. So my number 2 is a card game. It's just a straight up card game. That you can play with the 52 deck of cards. You don't need anything special. And like you said before, I think you know which one because we've talked about it. We've talked about it. We almost played it last night.
Yeah.
But you said before in terms of the cottage being emblematic of card games, and I think that is true. There's a lot to be said about board games. Hey, we all have a lot of them, and we like to play them. But there's also something that's so nice and casual, like just playing 5 crowns and just pulling out a deck of cards and sitting around a table and just playing. And so this is a game which I know as Screw Your Neighbor, but I believe its actual name is Stick the Dealer.
Yeah, we call it Bug Your Neighbor.
Bug Your Neighbor is what my family's always called.
Bug Your Neighbor, or I think it's
Fuck
called
the Dealer.
I think it's called Bugger Bridge as well.
I've definitely heard Fuck the Dealer as well.
Yeah.
Like it's every iteration.
Any iteration of that. Basically, you're going to decide on a set number of rounds. Usually we play 14, so you'll go up to 7 and then back. You get dealt 1 card in the first round.
Do you know Trump?
Yeah, you do know Trump.
Yeah,
no Trump as well.
To 8 with no Trump.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so you can choose whatever you want.
How many people you're playing with though?
Depends how many people you're playing with. Depends how many decks you have. If you have more people, you obviously just do it with 2 decks.
No!
And that's also fine.
Absolutely.
Sacre bleu! No, that's not even the word.
I take it back.
That is some really good French there, but
I know. No, you cannot add to multiple decks. You absolutely can't, because how do you?
Oh right,
how do
you
you have the
couldn't
trump?
break ties. Yeah.
You literally can.
that's true.
The highest
lied to
divisible
you.
number by how many people are around the table. You cannot add a second deck.
You know what? I'm just going to
It's a
cut this
trick-taking game.
so that I look
Hi,
good.
it's Matt and
Hi.
David from Room and
Welcome
Board.
to Room and Board. This is
Formerly
our
run by
channel
Chris
now.
George, who was fired.
But he doesn't understand board games. He pretends like he does.
Well, no.
and
See,
now
I
he
understand
doesn't.
board games.
Card games,
It's because
I
it's a
guess.
card game that I was a little.
Hi, it's
iffy
Matt
on.
from Room and Board. I'm a one-man show.
But yeah, there's so depending on the round, you deal out that number of cards, and then you go around and you bid how many tricks you think you're going to win. So Trump has been turned up. You know what Trump is, and then you can bid however many tricks you think you want to win. So it's not about having the best hand. It never matters what hand you get. It matters if you bid correctly and you can correctly anticipate everything that all the other players are going to do. And that concept means you're always in it.
Yeah.
It means you always have something to play and to strive for.
Totally.
And you don't just get a bad hand and you're like, okay, well, I'm out this round.
Which is like, so I love 5 crowns, but like we played last night
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was just not getting good cards. And it's like, it ain't over till the kings go wild. I get it. But I was out of it. Like, there was no way I was going to, pull in a win. And that sucks when you get bad cards.
Yeah,
it's just a part of
very
cards.
true.
And Bug Your Neighbor solves that.
Yeah.
For me.
Like, Bug Your Neighbor is probably the first game I was ever taught. Like, for in my opinion, it's like the first game that I remembered learning.
Yeah.
Because my family just played it. Like, every Sunday we would all sit around the dinner table after dinner at my grandpa's and just play that game. Like,
and there is strategy to it.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
totally.
It's like it is about like guessing and trying to figure out, okay, statistically, which of these cards might be out there? How many do I think I'm going to get? This person usually plays like that they're going to call less than they think they're going to. Like, there's lots of different things to consider, but it is at its core a card game. But it's like, play that over something stupid like Uno.
Yeah.
Screw Uno.
Well, I mean, it's up there. It's in the frame.
I mean, like,
I wouldn't want
I'm
it
gonna
there.
keep my niece happy, but whatever.
I don't
It's
want like Uno is no.
Yeah, like
Burn
if you
Uno.
like trick-taking games, like I grew up learning bridge and playing bridge with my family, and so I enjoy trick-taking games. Even if you feel like, I don't want to play this easy trick-taking game, it's a fun game. It's worth looking into. It's really fun. It's perfect for cottages. I learned this
It's
up
also
here.
so easy to teach to anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, if you've never played a trick-taking card game before,
Sure,
like,
the concept is a little hard. Yeah.
there is, someone who I'm not going to name who's no longer in our lives because of a breakup, who is up here, who struggled.
Yeah,
and everyone will be like,
struggled real hard. And that's the thing. It's like, sometimes people are just bad bettors. Right, but that's what it is. It's like it has actually nothing to do with the cards you've been dealt. It has completely has to do with what you judge your cards by. So yeah, it's a good game.
Yeah, so that's my number 2.
Great number 2.
Stick the Dealer, Bugger Bridge, Bug Your Neighbor,
whatever you want to call it.
Moving on to number 1, the number 1 cottage game. All the other ones were friggin' trash.
All the other cottage
for sure,
games
absolutely
are just imitating.
doesn't matter. So my number 1 has already been talked about. It's Patchwork.
It is Patchwork.
Yeah. My number 1's Patchwork.
Wow,
I
can't believe you didn't say Gloomhaven.
Yeah, I was
I'm
going
shook.
to. I was going to say Gloomhaven, but like,
really
here's the thing with
shook.
Gloomhaven is that it's like, it's an incredible game. It's the absolute best, but like, think about the trunk space going up to the cottage that Gloomhaven takes up.
You're right. It's like we
If
played
you're-
it
if you're-
primarily
you know
on
what I
a
mean?
cottage, but it's like it's not
Totally.
really great
Like,
cottage.
If you're
game.
if you're packing a car with 5 people to go away to the cottage for the weekend, you don't have room for Gloomhaven because that's the beer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, legit.
So you know what I mean? Like the way I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't make sense as a cottage game. I think it's brilliant. Yes, we played like 40 campaigns at the cottage.
Yeah.
But it doesn't practically make sense to be on this list.
You're right.
I know it's your number one.
No, it's not. It's not.
Whoa, wow.
I thought you were going to say
Oh,
it.
interesting. Okay,
Patchwork
cool.
is a great choice.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so Patchwork is my number one. I for all the reasons that it's already been talked about, but like, it's such a brilliant game. It's so like the detail in it is beautiful. I love the currency. I love the work. It so fits with the theme of like putting a quilt on and like being in the woods and like
nice
but
and cozy.
also like with how
only
many
a couple holes in it and some leather patches on
yeah,
top.
totally. But with like how many other like iterations of Patchwork there's been now, you could probably even find one that is like meant to be something cottage themed.
Well, there's
not only to mention that. Well, you're probably going to talk about this, but they basically made Patchwork a bigger game for 4 players called Cottage Garden, which is literally just Patchwork, but for 4 people.
No, it is more complex.
I think it's more complex.
Introduces
but
new elements. We haven't played it. But
I've never played it before, but like,
yeah,
Patchwork for me is like, it's just a great game, and it's so perfect. It's so, and an opposite of Gloomhaven, it's so easy to bring to a cottage. The box is like this big, so you can fit it into like whatever you're bringing up. It can go into someone's purse if you have to, like. In terms of space in the car to get it away. And it's like, one person's awake in the morning. Let's play a quick game before other people wake up. Let's throw a game of Patchwork together.
Yeah.
Or like everyone's asleep and we want to play one more thing. Oh, this will only take us a half hour. Like it's just, it's a perfect game for the situation. It's easy enough to teach to anyone because most people have played Tetris before. So they understand the mechanic of like putting the pieces together. And it's just, I love it.
Great choice.
Your number one would be the game that you often beat me at. Like it's so petty.
I was going to say that there is now there was a Halloween version that got released recently, and I think it's a different shape because I know
is it like a pumpkin?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not too sure. My friend Cody was telling me about it. He got it recently, and he said it was a pumpkin. So if it's not, blame Cody because I'm trusting his word on that.
Isn't there also like Patchwork Express or something else like that? Too?
There is. There's so many versions of Patchwork now. But like, I honestly, for me, it's just the original Patchwork. Like the pieces are beautiful, the textures on all the quilts, the button currency, like everything about it, and I win every time I play it.
Not every time. But,
I mean, like.
I really am mad that we didn't bring it up this time. I want to play it and beat you.
Huh? Yeah. I wish we had it right now. Yeah,
it's a great game. I also want to play Cottage Garden. I forgot about that game.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally called Cottage Garden.
Yeah.
Well, probably a great game.
Really, probably would have been a perfect one for this list, but it didn't make it.
Well, you brought it up too. You're when I said the list, Dave's just like, okay, I guess we're all putting Cottage Garden as first. I was like, no, you don't have to. I was like, just get the feeling. Yeah.
Matt, your number one.
My number one. Okay, so my number one. I don't know that you could call it a great game, but it means so much to me. Like, this game for me is you wake up in the cottage morning and it is like pouring rain. The day is ugly. Yeah. The plans you had to go to the beach are gone. It is gloomy, maybe even a little spooky. Maybe there's fog on the lake. And this game is like, can be up to like a 4 to 5 hour epic. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Oh, I do know what you're going to say. I thought it was something different, but
yeah. And it's a game that I love so deeply, and it is Arkham Horror, the 2nd edition.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is one of my all-time favorite games. It's a cooperative game. You all play different investigators who come from different walks of life. There's so many different characters, and there's an ancient one from the H.P. Lovecraft mythos that's been chosen that is starting to awaken from its slumber, and your job as like a ragtag group of investigators is to close these portals that are opening up from other worlds and save the world.
Or the town of Arkham.
Well, no, but it's the town of Arkham is where it takes place. Sure, but you are saving the world.
Sure.
Okay, the stakes are
high. The stakes are massive.
It's a sloppy game in a lot of ways. The mechanics are clunky.
Oh, yeah.
I have spent so many hours reading through FAQs and on Board Game Geek trying to figure out weird fiddly scenarios.
And never played this game with somebody who hasn't done that.
Yeah, and so really, truly, I think the game is enhanced because when I play it, I function sort of as a DM almost, like a dungeon master.
Totally.
So allowing the other players to kind of really role play and be a part of the experience because it is so thematically heavy, even if it's lacking in some of the mechanics. It, for me, is just... it feels like you're like making a season of television, and everyone has their own plot lines, and there's these crazy things that happen to everyone, and then you either win or lose. And with any good co-op game, the win-lose rate is, about 50-50 in a lot of ways, depending on if you're throwing in some expansions. As you get better at the game, you can make things a little bit harder for yourselves. So it's such a good game. I love it so much. It brings me so much joy. And yeah, it can take a while, but nothing better than like a rainy day. And when I texted my brother being like, what would be your Cottage Games? That's one that he asked. He's like, for a rainy day,
nice.
Arkham Horror, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's always he always brings it up. Like when you ask to bring up games, that's always a part of it.
And like my favorite, you can play, I think, like up to 8, which I would never
no.
Yeah, I think even 6 is too much. My favorite way to play it is 2 players, and you each play 2 characters, because sometimes what can happen if you're just playing your one character, which is what you're supposed to do, inevitably, every once in a while, you're going to get some bad rolls, you're not going to get a good item, and that can be a really not great experience.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas if you have 2 characters, if one of them's kind of bad, at least you have another character.
Yeah.
It's a great game. God, I love Arkham Horror. And there is a 3rd edition, which I've not played, and I have no interest in playing.
It changes a lot of stuff, the 3rd edition.
I'll probably play it some.
And I know, like, Eldritch is all the same characters.
But more streamlined.
Yeah. But, like, the second edition of Arkham Horror is it's a terrible game, but it's an awesome game.
It's a perfect fucking mess. I love that game.
Yeah. I when I thought of what you would choose, I thought of Arkham Horror. I know you love that game. That's the reason why I have a copy in my collection. I don't know if you saw it.
You have a copy in your collection?
I do have a copy in my collection, yeah. And it is actually one that Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. picked as one of the top 10 worst games in my collection.
Wow.
In his video that he just released a little bit ago.
I don't know who you are, Alex, but you're canceled.
Yeah, you're never invited to
that comment is homophobic. You're homophobic,
You thought
Alex.
you would come to this cottage, but it's not going to happen, bud.
So I'm particularly happy to see to feel the joy emanating from it, because I agree with you, and I love the vibe. I agree with everything you said. Like, mechanically, there are a bunch of clunky disasters in it, but like it for me, it also doesn't matter. Because it's a solid.
You want to play with people who are willing to role play, who are like really willing to like be a part of the narrative of like what's happening.
Yeah, I described it. It's like it's a real vibe.
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
All right, here it
comes.
This
brings me to my number one. Our number one. It will be our when they remember, and it actually exists in this cottage. I do not own a copy. It exists in this cottage. And I love this game so much.
No, are you going to say that?
I absolutely am. I'm gonna go get it.
No! No.
I want to go get the box.
It's not even a game. It's not even a game. I think it's actually been thrown out.
No, I checked your
drawers. Did you look? Oh, no.
I don't think I know what this is.
It's a stupid bounce game. Bounce off. Stupid.
That cannot be your number one.
It's not a tabletop game.
This is also why I wanted to do it with you, too. Because I knew you'd hate it so much. Listen,
I'm leaving the bye.
Listen, this may lose me all credibility, but I don't even care.
Yeah. Unsubscribe.
It is this game called Bounce Off.
Unsubscribe.
Unlike and unsubscribe.
Unfollow, unsubscribe, do whatever you're doing. Just get rid of it.
Bounce Off.
What's the point?
This game is so stupid. It's so fun. You know how I love my stupid games. All it is you throw little. Oh, I'm gonna get it out.
It's beer pong for children.
It's beer pong for children. You have this.
We're gonna play it tonight now, though.
Oh,
for sure.
It's
I didn't
so
know that's
great.
your favorite.
Oh, I love it so much. I've seen it. I've like actively searched for it, and then I think like, no, my table isn't really like that good for it, or like it's just one that I always want to pull out and just bounce some balls into this little grid, and you have cards, and you've got to make the orientations of them. So this one you have to get 4 in a square. You do it, you score the point. I don't even know how the points work. I don't even care.
None of it matters.
I never should have invited you up here.
Because I know that you guys...
Isn't this the only card that's in here? Like,
it probably
is. Like, we're not... I hate this so much.
This is also why I wanted to go last, because I knew that it would derail the video entirely.
Yeah, it's completely gone.
When I mention it.
So like, bounce it in, line them up, rule the table. Well, I mean, why not? Winning this game really does make you the better person.
That's what it says in the back? That's fantastic. I didn't know that was the catchphrase.
It says how to play. Step 1 is to trash talk your opponent. Have you this is?
Did it actually say that?
Step 1 is to trash talk your opponent.
I knew I would put my faith in this
says
game.
age 7+,
and it would reward me.
Age 7+.
Honestly,
probably so you don't
your
choke
niece
on
has probably trash talked me playing this game.
Probably, yeah, absolutely.
What's step 2?
Step 2 is bouncing the ball to match the design on the card. In this version, the one card that we have left.
Three-step rule here, everyone.
Yeah.
Step 3, celebrate your victory.
Easy as that.
And it's got like a sad dad being like, "Oh man, I can't bounce my ball." It's just.
Yeah, he does. He does look so disappointed.
He's wrecked.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I'll try to get that. Oh my gosh!
This is.
It's fantastic.
Right now.
I know. I knew you guys would hate it. I know we would hate it, but it's because this exists at your cottage that it is number 1.
Fair.
I don't own a copy.
A
game I would only play at a cottage. Exclusively is great.
Won't
at
play
a
again
cottage.
for another 5 years.
Oh
yeah. Invite it back up again.
Don't need to. It's
don't need to.
It savors. It's like a fine wine. It ages beautifully.
As
every
all the components
time.
slowly get lost.
So remember how this list was creditable until this moment? Like everything about this video was something you could actually take credit for and be like, "Oh, this is a good idea to bring to a cottage." Not this one.
No, don't.
I honestly love it. If you got kids, they'll love it. The balls will go everywhere. You'll probably lose pieces. See, this is the thing, is that if this does exist at a cottage, half of the pieces are inevitably gone.
Oh, for
you
sure.
could easily turn it into a drinking game, though, which would probably be okay.
Absolutely.
And
It's beer pong.
It's beer pong.
It's beer pong.
It's
without the beer.
literally just beer pong. So,
but you get to make more exciting arrangements.
you know what, though? Kudos to the person that made this game and was like, "Oh, I'm going to take beer pong and make it for children and then sell a bunch of copies of it at Walmart." And, and now it's in this cottage.
Bounce it in, line them up, rule the table.
You heard it here first. Should we do a rapid fire of honorable mentions?
Yeah, I know you had a bunch of honorable mentions. I think Gloomhaven is an honorable mention.
Gloomhaven is
Gloomhaven has to be an honorable mention.
It's an honorable mention, absolutely.
But I think you're right 100% that its size does disqualify it.
Yeah.
But if you can get it up and just have it live at the cottage, hey. I think anything, the legacy game, the campaign game, that was going to be...
Totally.
I was trying to find one.
Charterstones are really good. Would be a good cottage game if you were going away for a week.
Yeah, but if you're going, you have to be going away with the same people over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're going to the cottage with different people, different groupings of people.
Totally.
So legacy games don't really lend themselves well to the cottage unless you're going with the same person.
Or going with your board game crew.
Yeah.
But Gloomhaven...
But even then, legacy games take a long time. If you're only there for a week, you're not going to... We were in Saskatchewan for a whole summer and we couldn't finish Charterstone.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true,
there's too many other games that you want to play.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
Yeah, so that's why they didn't make the list. But I think if
would have probably
it's the same
been
as Arkham Horror taking the whole afternoon or to be able to do something together and have that sort of arc and communal experience. I think that's kind of what this is all about. And I'm I didn't touch on at all in my games list, right? None of those games we're particularly playing because we're here and we're ready to get into some more intense stuff, right? But I didn't want to add that sort of stuff.
For me, an honorable mention is Grand Austria Hotel, because as someone who hosts people up here, sometimes it feels like I'm your room's ready for you. So to bring that into the theme on the table too. Also, it's just my favorite game, so any excuse to play it at any point, I would just play it. But I don't know if it fits as someone who hosts people at the cottage.
I think it's because you love it that you're trying to show.
Maybe
it has nothing to do with the cottage. That theme is basic. Just paste it on there. But it's a good game. It's a good game. My alternative to the Mind, the chaotic version, was Avalon. I feel it's a classic.
For
you
sure,
have a lot of people.
Just
get everyone screaming at each other in a
room.
Or
Secret Hitler games.
Yeah, Secret Hitler or something.
Yeah.
I've seen a good party game. Code Names, of course. I feel has to be an honorable mention. I just am not interested in mentioning it.
I know. I'd say
One Night Werewolf on the same.
Totally one. I was also going to say possibly Catan, just because it's some people. It's an easy enough game to throw on the table. It's easy to teach.
It's nostalgic.
It's nostalgic for a lot of people. You know what I mean? If we were going away with our university friends, that's probably what game that we would bring, because we used to play that when we started our gaming experience, right?
I had Sagrada on mine as well.
Yep.
Which are just, the components are nice, plays quick, sort of fits that similar puzzle theme that like Patchwork kind of has with beautiful, colorful dice.
Totally.
I don't see it.
You don't see it?
Nah. I mean, I like Sagrada, but I'll play it. I'll play it
at
not
home.
Cottage.
Yeah, Sagrada's about like stained glass windows, not about cottaging.
It's not. I'm not. Sorry, the criteria wasn't has to be about cottaging.
Sorry, it looks like all three of
I
us have
also
been
had
kicked off of Room and Board.
A game that I only play at a cottage is Kill Dr. Lucky.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was going to be
That's
my
true.
number 5.
We do
It's
only
basically
play
like
that at a cottage.
reverse Clue, and it's not a great game. It's like a very classic board game style where you basically like it's not quite like roll and move, but it's similar to that. And but we play it with this set of friends who like absolutely love it, and we have such a great time when we play it.
Yep.
But that's an honorable mention.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
My other honorable mention would have been Hanabi as well.
Because
it captures that sort of card game feel. It's cooperative, but it does take a little bit too much memory and intensity and attention. That's why it didn't ultimately make my list.
Another one like it's again behind you, Dutch Blitz, super quick, easy game. It's basically solitaire, but it's fun to play with. And if you have the expansion, you can play with up to 8. I would never recommend that. Ever.
Dutch Blitz almost was on mine. I thought about doing Dutch
Blitz. It's really good.
It's a fantastic game.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Even like Bananagrams would also be great. Scrabble is like, what about Scrabble, y'all? What's better than an afternoon at a cottage with coffee and like snacks playing Scrabble?
Because we're trying to make an interesting video, not a basic video, David.
Well, never should have invited me because I guess I'm basic then.
Well, here we have our first domestic abuse, a dispute, not abuse. That'll come after.
It's funny that we made it to about an hour long into this video before we really did this.
Yeah, because the camera stops every 30 minutes, so we're now here. So lots of honorable mentions, but honestly, those are all trash because that's why they didn't make it on the list.
No, they didn't.
All you need to worry about really are the number ones, and who's the host of the channel. Really, you just need to worry about Bounce Off. Anyway, thank you, Matt and Dave, for coming on the channel.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I'm Chris George.
I'm David DiFrancesco.
I'm Matt Polimpiak.
And I don't have a catchphrase, but it's a good joke to finish us off. I've been smiling so much just being remembering.
I'm gonna go rule the table.
Never play Bounce Off.
Or do. I mean, I kind of want to play Bounce Off now.
Bye. Yeah, I think it is.